Thank you, Troy. Looks like we're on.
Go for it.
All right, thank you, and welcome everyone for our regular meeting of the Madera County Transportation Commission Policy Board. Before we start the meeting and call to order, I do need to make an announcement that I am participating remotely under SB 707, Just Cause Unofficial Business. I will need the consent of the board to allow me to participate remotely. So at this time, I'm not sure if that's through a vote or if just need to see your thumbs up that I can participate.
Let's do a roll call vote. We'll do a roll call vote.
We need a motion.
Yes.
Move to approve from second, third.
Okay, I'm sorry, who had the
Robin
motion? Okay, Commissioner McCauley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed,
Yes.
Commissioner Poitras,
Aye.
Commissioner Rogers.
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries.
Okay, thank you much, Natalia. This time we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'll ask that we all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance since you're there. Vice Chair Poitras, if you would please lead us.
Certainly. Salute the greatest flag in the minute. Ready, salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't know what's going to say something about being planted in ice soon. But no, that's something in the, yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Poitras. Is it Natalia, are you taking roll?
Sandy.
Can
Sandy
you
Ebersol,
please-
I'd like
Sandy,
to
thank
introduce
Sandy.
you guys.
Yes, thank you, Sandy. Can you please take roll call?
Commissioner McCauley.
Here.
Commissioner Ahmed,
Yes.
Commissioner Poitras,
Aye.
Commissioner Rogers,
Here.
Chair Rodriguez.
Here.
Commissioner Zachariah is absent today.
All right, thank you, Sandy. With that, we'll go on to public comment. This time is made available for comments from the public on matters within the board's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Attention is called to the fact that the board is prohibited by law from taking any substantive action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda, and no adverse conclusion should be drawn if the board does not respond to public comment at this time. It is requested that no comments be made during this period on items that are on today's agenda. Members of the public wishing to make a comment on any item on today's agenda should notify the chairperson of their desire to address the board when the item is called. This time, I'll open it up to the public.
And we do have public comment.
Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I see some familiar faces out there. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Vanessa Barraza. I serve as a field representative for Assemblywoman Esmeralda Soria. I am based out of our Merced District Office and serve Madera County as well as the communities of Dos Palos and Los Banos, acting as a direct connection between our region and the Assemblywoman. My role is to assist residents with state-related issues, advocate for our community, and ensure Madera and the surrounding areas have access to state programs, resources, while also making sure local voices are heard in Sacramento. I want to briefly share a few updates from 2025. This year, California took meaningful steps to address the affordability crisis. The legislature passed historic reforms to build more housing, cut red tape, and improve affordability. We also delivered the largest energy affordability solution in years, helping lower electricity rates and utility bills for family and small businesses. Assemblywoman Soria was proud to author and support legislation that directly benefited our region. This includes AB 36, which helps smaller rural cities and counties qualify for state housing funds, AB 457, which expands streamlined approvals for affordable farm worker housing in Fresno, Madera, and Merced counties, AB 639, which reduces unnecessary regulatory burdens on agricultural water infrastructure. She also authored AB 848 and AB 849, strengthening patient safety and healthcare settings. Assemblywoman Soria is actively working with Madera Community Hospital and relevant state partners to ensure the hospital remains open and continues serving our community. The state budget delivered important investments locally, including $5 million for flood infrastructure in Planada, $5 million for firefighter training at the Mid-Valley Regional Training Center in Fresno, 2.7 million for immigration and legal services in the Central Valley. Assemblywoman Soria values strong partnerships with the cities here like Madera. Our office is available to assist with state resources, navigating state agencies, and supporting local priorities. We are also happy to assist by providing letters of support, advocating with state departments, and helping move local projects and funding requests forward whenever possible. Please consider our office a resource, whether it's identifying funding opportunities, addressing challenges, or elevating issues to the state level. I'm here to listen, collaborate, and work alongside you to support and strengthen our community. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to staying connected.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Barraza. Do we have anyone else from the public wishing to make a comment? Anyone in Zoom and or audio? Okay, seeing none. We'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to MCTC sitting as the Transportation Policy Committee. This is transportation consent items. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and non-controversial by MCTC staff and will be approved by one motion if no member of the committee or public wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered in the listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the committee concerning the item before action is taken. At this time, I'll ask if any of my colleagues are wishing to pull any item.
Mr. Chair, I don't wish to pull any items. I would just like to make a comment on the consent calendar, the individual items. I just like to encourage people. I know that my colleagues have taken a close look at all of the consent calendar items, but I just encourage the public to do so as well because, you know, you may see something that, you know, for instance, the California Freight Mobility Plan. Okay, big deal. Well, if you look at that particular item, you really learn a lot as far as what California is looking at in terms of, you know, what they think of trucks, what do they think of, you know, what's going to be happening, you know, in the future. You know, some of these other things, the SB1 update, you know, so they really are, you know, somebody that wasn't familiar, is not into transportation stuff, might look at some of these things and go, what are you talking about? But it's a, you know, why should I look at that? But I find them, you know, really interesting. And again, for more, you know, clarification for your own edification, I'd really encourage people to, again, kind of dive into our consent calendar items, and very educational. And thank you, everybody, for the preparation to put them together. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Poitras. And to your point, you know, they're very informative consent items. I just here at the cities, at Cal Cities, I requested that our city manager look into 4C, which is the community planning and capacity building, which I think is a grant that sometimes goes overlooked, but very important. But thank you again. Appreciate you mentioning that. Any other comments from my colleagues? If not, I'll open it up to public. Anyone from the public wishing to make any comments and or questions regarding the consent calendar? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second. Oh,
Sandy, you do have a first and a second. Can you please take roll?
Commissioner Rogers,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed,
Yes.
Commissioner McCauley,
Yes.
Commissioner Poitras,
aye.
Chair Rodriguez,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, transportation action discussion items. We do have item 5A, state legislative update, 2026 state legislative program draft summary and draft MCTC 2026 state legislative platform.
Yes, thank you,
Executive.
Mr. Chair. Today, we actually have Gus Corey from Corey Consulting in person. So I'd like to introduce Gus Corey. There he is. There's 2 items of interest today under his item, and that is the governor did release his budget on January 9th. And Gus will kind of give us a little update on how it impacts transportation or how it doesn't impact transportation. And then also our legislative platform, our draft platform is also included in the package this month. So Gus, just go ahead and pass it off to you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. And the one time that I'm not at the MCTC meeting, Gus makes his appearance.
Good to see you in any capacity, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to be here, Commissioners. Gus Corey, State Legislative Advocate for MCTC. Pleasure to be here. As Director Taylor mentioned, I just want to give you sort of a broad summary of what we're contending with here in Sacramento, and then how that leads into the framing of our draft 2026 state legislative platform for your consideration. So the legislature came back into session on January 5th to begin the second year of the two-year session. And we have a new Senate President Pro Tem, Monique Limon, who represents the counties of Ventura, San Luis Obispo, and Santa Barbara County. So the Central Coast now represents in both houses with Speaker Rivas representing Santa Clara County, Santa Cruz County, and San Benito as well. And which is exciting for us because they're very similar in size, and many of the issues are similar to what we have to contend with here in the Valley. So we're looking for some synergies and some cooperation with the leadership, the new leadership in the legislature. So Governor Newsom did release his fiscal year 26-27 state budget on January 9th, which was on Friday, a week from this past Friday. And yeah, the good news is there really isn't an impact on transportation funding per se. A lot of that has to do with the fact that transportation is predominantly funded through special funds, such as the gas tax or vehicle registration fees. But where we do get snake bit is on the rare occurrences where the legislature decides to give us some revenues for transportation. Transportation did used to receive general fund support up until about 2011, when then they did what they call the gas tax swap. And the problem is that the general fund, 50 cents of the dollar goes towards education. And so anytime we go up against some of these other sectors, education, health, human services, it takes away money from the legislature's ability to keep meeting obligations, constitutional obligations to keep up with their funding. And so it's somewhat of a blessing because we're somewhat insulated, but transportation gets a much smaller budget than you're talking about maybe $12 billion annually, as opposed to about $150 billion of general fund support for education, just give you a economies of scale comparison. That being said, I'll get into it more once we go through our platform, but things that we're kind of forecasting for the year here for you is that the legislature did extend session by 1 day last year because it took that long for them to come up with an agreement on the new Cap and Invest program. I'm very proud to say that we did weigh in, MCTC as part of the Valley Policy Council, to kind of get them to maintain existing funding. We have to rely on that to get funding for public transportation, passenger rail. It's just part of the game that we have to play in putting together a sustainable community strategy to qualify for getting some of these state grant funds from Senate Bill 1 to fund things like State Route 41, State Route 99, even the 233. I mean, these are all important regional projects that we can't do on our own with our measure dollars. So we really need to access the state funding and able to do that. And so we played a role there. So the governor does say, as opposed to the LAO, you might have heard back in November that there is a general fund deficit of 18 billion. The governor said, well, it's actually about 2.9 billion. And that's because he cited the fact that we've received about $31 billion more since fiscal year 24-25 than what was anticipated. The LAO is also anticipating that there will be a drop off with the stock market of up to 20%. The governor's not buying into that. It's just straight math as far as what have we received. We're going to wait 4 more months until the May revise is published to figure out what revenues are then, and then we'll adjust accordingly. So $2.9 billion doesn't seem like that heavy of a lift, but they've done a lot of maneuvering in order. So they're out of, there's not many more tricks that they can play to solve the budget deficit, if you will. So they got to dip into the rainy day fund, and then we'll see what revenues are in May. So that's the budget. And just like, kind of a quick preview of the Cap and Invest program, if you will. Any questions before I kind of jump into the state legislative platform? So the state legislative platform, and I don't know, Troy, if you were going to put that up.
Yeah.
Kind of follow along. Okay. I hope folks can read that. We try to keep it fairly straightforward and simple. This is sort of our manual that we use to advocate for things during the year. We do have an annual Sacramento trip that I put together, where we meet with not just our legislative delegation, but with key members of the Newsom administration, CalSTA, Caltrans, the Transportation Commission, to tee ourselves up to continue to access funding. As I mentioned, that's sort of been our number one priority. And so, there's not too many changes. We did tweak it because we want to highlight things as far as, looking at trying to get funding for State Route 233 for that interchange project. The Capital Invest program, what we were kind of sold upon, and Commissioner Fortress might remember this, I don't know, but from our Valley Voice trip last March, what we were told is if they extended the Capital Invest program, that there would be market stability, which could result in excess revenues. And so that has yet to materialize because the auctions, the last two rounds, have not been promising. They're down about $350 million. They actually owe us from our Senate Bill 125 allotment, which that was supposed to be used for transit operations and capital. MCTC share that was $18.8 million. And I'll defer to Director Taylor, or maybe Troy even knows, but I think we received maybe 60%, of those funds. And so we're short. So we need to access that because operators are building that into their budgets to maintain existing service. So that's one thing we'll advocate for. But the excess revenues, to the extent that they do materialize, we want to use that to just offset whatever obligations we have and be able to stretch our measure dollars further to take care of other local priorities. So we're looking at that. Getting some kind of permanent funding for active transportation again. That's been something that a lot of local jurisdictions have been trying to deliver on, fund complete streets and such, and the legislature cut off general fund support. So I do think that there are ways to still augment the program. There's truck weight fees, which that's $1.5 billion that the legislature's been since 2011. If they were to restore just a portion of that, we'd be able to solve some of the funding gaps that we have there. But the biggest item in here is, being a smaller county, and even with the measure program, we're very heavily reliant, as I led off the conversation, on state funding, and that's predominantly the gas tax. So the gas tax funds local streets and roads. It funds the SHOP program, which makes it possible for projects such as the Avenue 7 through 12 construction that's going on, among anything, safety on the state highway system, even getting some flexible funding or formulaic distribution for you guys to leverage our measure dollars against. And that, you probably heard from Commissioner Porthos, among others wearing various hats, is that it's drying up, and it's just cars are more fuel efficient. Yes, there's more electric vehicles. There's fewer than you think. It's less than 7% of all registered vehicles that are out on the road. So you can only tax them so much, but people are telecommuting. So there's just a decline, a steady decline of revenue, which the LEO says over the next decade will result, the legislative analyst's office will result in about a $6 billion drop in revenue. That's pretty substantial. We need every dollar possible. So one thing that we would like to work with other jurisdictions on is a successor source. Assemblymember Lori Wilson does have a placeholder bill. Commissioner Porthos has been on a road user charge task force for well over a decade looking at a solution. So we just want to be more intentional this year about getting the legislature to act on something, because the longer they delay, the harder it is to solve the problem, to convert over. And the theme this year and even last year by Speaker Rivas, among others, was about affordability. So just being sensitive to how do you convert over to something where we can try to hold the bulk of people harmless, but still account for the wear and tear on our roadways, and so that we can have predictable, stable funding that we can rely on to execute on our measure expenditure plan, among other things. So, we're hoping to engage further with the Policy Council, other coalitions, labor, business, et cetera, this year on trying to bring a package together that the legislature can consider before this governor's termed out, because once Governor Newsom is termed out, you get a new governor in there. It just kind of gives them maybe more of a ramp to say, let's not deal with it in the first year. And then, like I said, we just hemorrhage more dollars that we shouldn't be losing in the first place. So that's kind of what item number one's about. Number two, very briefly, just our regional partnerships. Because we're a self-help county, we're a member, and Director Taylor has actually been chair of the Self-Help Counties Coalition. We're a member of CalCog. I know that Commissioner Porthos, you've served as the past, chair of CalCog. And then we're a member of the Policy Council, which is all 8 COGs in the Valley, along with the Air District and the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission. And so we're trying to leverage our interests as much as we can in order, again, to protect funding, stave against any kind of cuts, but also be aggressive about pursuing opportunities. And so the bigger issue, and this kind of bleeds into number 4, I'll get to in a second, but there's going to be some air quality issues that we want to address. We want to make sure that safety on 99 is still a focus and a priority of this administration. So that's the regional partnership section. Item 3, just very quickly, pursuing transit funding. This is capturing not just the Senate Bill 125 balance that we have, but some operators have a hard time meeting their fare box recovery requirements. There was some relief that was provided that ends at the end of this fiscal year, so June 30th. There's various calculations that were placed to try to make it easier. But what we don't want to have to do is ding a transit operator because they're not making fare box because they haven't fully realized full ridership recovery. So it just seems like a silly thing to have to do. So that's what was added sort of in number 3, along with the SB 125 funds. And then the greenhouse gas emissions section, this has just been a real sense of frustration for many in the Valley. We are in a non-attainment air district, but our density is not the same as that of other jurisdictions, highly urbanized areas. So, and we don't have forced sales tax measures like LA County does to be able to make some of these improvements. And the frustration is they hold us to that standard. And what it does is if we don't get an adopted plan by the Air Resources Board, it precludes us from accessing those state dollars that I've been talking about. And so it's the other part of the equation. We have to stop the hemorrhaging on the funding side, but we also have to be able to comply with the air quality mandates to access the funding too. And so this is a high focus of the Valley this year, among others, and we'll work with CalCog to try to codify language that's a little bit more pragmatic for our region. And then the last item, I know a big focus last year was on high-speed rail and just protecting that funding. That was accomplished. It's just not having relics in the Valley, and we have a station plant here in Madera, and that seems to have been put to bed for the better. And so now it's just getting high-speed rail to execute and then looking for any other opportunities for any additional frequency of passenger rail service if possible. And that's because we get to score that as a greenhouse gas emission reduction, vehicle miles traveled reduction, to help us again with getting our SCS adopted by the Air Board and continue to access these funds. And then I think affordable housing was sort of the last. We took that one off. I can't remember. No, so passenger was the last one. Yeah, that's right. I got my platform and stuff. But that's it.
That's that other county.
Directors. a lot that I kind of keep in my brain here. So I'm happy to take any questions, comments, but this is an action item for your consideration, Mr. Chair and Commissioner.
Thank you, Gus. Appreciate the very comprehensive report. I'll open this up to my colleagues. If there's any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to mention something on the first item there on the alternative tax source. It's interesting, all during this time on the Technical Advisory Committee for road charge and these other things. I mean, there's all this thing about making things affordable and equity, all about disadvantaged communities. Well, if the legislature really cared about disadvantaged communities, right now, there'd be some kind of a credit when people go to the pump and buy gas and they go, oh, here's my card that gives me like 30 cents off a gallon so I don't have to pay some of this state sales tax. That doesn't happen, right? Unless I'm missing something. No, everybody pays the same. So, but all of a sudden, with these other alternatives, there's, all these groups are jumping in going, oh, well, and it's supposed to be revenue neutral, but so I guess my point is that it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the legislature lacking the backbone to address this issue. It's our legislators, pushing it off. Again, I've mentioned before, I've been on this thing for 12 years. We've had study after study. We've had pilot program after pilot program. And it just gets keep pushed out. And, isn't it the legislature that's supposed to move forward on this? But it's not a popular thing. We saw Josh Newman get recalled back in 2017. How many people remember Josh Newman down in Southern California? He was recalled. Ling Chang took his place, and the Republicans, they moved from a super minority to a minority position in the state Senate for like a year or two, and then it went back to super majority. But yeah, so they remember that. And so nobody wants to be tagged with oh, look, they're throwing this in here, because whoever really adopts it, they're going to be labeled the person who's overcharging us and this and that and Newsom this and whatever. So they, so there's fear out there. So that's the problem. I mean, we can study this thing to death, but nobody's got the backbone or the guts to move this thing forward in the California legislature. Nobody does. There's no champion for this thing. Lori is probably the closest one, and she's doing all these little road charge things, but name one legislator that's taken this thing on. I'd love to hear it. Anybody?
Well, I know one public official that would be willing to take on it.
Yeah, I just need to be up there. But yeah, exactly. It's just amazing. So anyway, just want to throw that out there. That's the big problem right there.
And not to get too much into, a debate or, throwing shit at the wall or anything like that, but I mean, how much of an opportunity is there for, the Valley to come together and put pressure on the legislator? I mean, is that what needs to happen, in your opinion, Bob? Or,
I agree. And that's part of our program, our platform, not only here, but in the Valley. But the problem is, in a platform in the Valley, it just says, oh, this is one of our priorities. Well, that doesn't do anything. Oh, look, this is one of our priorities. Okay, thank you. And then we move on. But yeah, it has to have some muscle. We have to have some meat. We have to be able to get in people's faces and ask them, what are you doing about this? And just really be direct and forward, whether it's a D or an R, because we talked a lot of R's, we have to say, look, you can, a lot of times R's, and I am one, live in this fantasy world, like, oh, well, we can do this or we can do that. No, you can't. And, you can be dogmatic, but I'm pragmatic and I know what's going to work in this state, so you can hide behind your ideological shield all you want, but it's not going to do anything. So yeah, it's something that we need to do on the Valley. We've talked about that in the last meeting. So yeah, thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you, Vice Chair Poitras. At this time, I'll open it up for any other member of the commission wishing to make a comment or questions for Gus. If not, Gus, I too would like to acknowledge, I just came out of a meeting here, a session with the League of California Cities Advocacy Group, and you're absolutely right regarding the deficit, especially the $18 billion that we're looking at. But our governor, overlooks that the stock market and how that's going to play out. I think you mentioned somewhere in the ballpark of $2 billion, which is it's $16 billion short of what the LAO has forecasted, and in the out years even a bigger number, so to speak. So I think it's important that we prepare ourselves if we're going to take on the governor's budget and/or which one do we pay attention to, right? Is it the LAO's budget, or is it the governor's budget? And sure enough, it just doesn't look pretty in the out years either. But thank you again, Commissioner Poitras. Appreciate the sentiment regarding the current issue that we face with the replacement of this current gas tax. It's now to the tune of $6 billion from what I understood just recently, and it continues to grow. So at some point, like you said, I think it does take a backbone for someone to want to step up and start really advocating for the needs of our community. Because essentially what happens is, that funding is specific to our funding that we take into account when we're talking transportation needs here in our communities. That being said, thanks again, Gus. If there's no other questions, I'll open it up to the public. Before we do take any action, I did have to mention that I am taking this remotely at a hotel and there is no adult in my room. So just wanted to make sure I put that out there. I think I needed to disclose that early on.
How about children?
Oh, I'm sorry. How about no one in my room? But I specifically, for some reason, the Just Cause says that I had to report if there was any adults in the room.
Just a brief comment. So first, I really want to thank Commissioner Porthos for all the work over the past 12 years. I think why I'm committed to helping you guys find a solution is respectfully, most people are going to go to their council members, their mayors, their supervisors. You guys are more tangible than the legislators are, right? You're going to have to account for it. And that's where, when we did Senate Bill 1, it was an increase. They increased the gas tax, and then there was a brand new registration fee. We're talking about converting over. So politically, you would think that it should be less controversial. The problem is folks haven't been able to figure that out, and they're dealing too much with theory instead of math and how it kind of pans out. And my biggest concern is we have to look at our demographics and what would Madera residents pay under a road user charge? Because we have a lot of vehicle miles traveled. Is that all generated from Maderans? I doubt it. I mean, we have less than 200,000 people in the county, and yet everyone's up and down the 99. So why should we have to absorb, vehicle miles traveled by everyone when we're helping to facilitate state and national commerce, right? So something equitable in that regard where it does account for all the vehicle miles traveled, but it's fair so that we're not penalizing folks where they live or where they can actually afford to live, and that's what happens, right? People buy where they can afford, with housing, or they go where the jobs are, et cetera. So very committed to work with you on this issue, this commission on the issue. And I just really thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gus. At this time, I'll open it up for anyone from the public wishing to make a comment.
Being none.
Assuming there's none. Okay, so this is an action item.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, you have a first and a second. Sandy, can you please take roll?
Commissioner Poitras,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed,
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers.
Yes.
Chair Rodriguez.
Yes.
Your motion carries.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item 5B, Social Service Transportation Advisory Councils, fiscal year 26-27, unmet transit needs recommendations. This is resolution 26-01. Donna, I believe this is yours.
Bear with me for a minute while I. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So today we'll share with you where we are in the unmet transit needs process. We're going to touch a little bit on the roles of the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council and MCTC, and the efforts that were made to include the public in this process. We're also going to discuss the analysis and recommendations that were made by the SSTAC, and then finally, what the next steps in the unmet transit needs process will be. I also want to mention that we have some SSTAC members here in the audience. We have some online as well, including the Madera County Transit Manager, Monty Cox, and also our SSTAC Chair, Frank Simonis, who would like to say a few opening words.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
you're on.
Oh, thank you. Hi, my name is Frank Simonis. I know some of you, those that don't know, I'm finishing up my 5th year as the chairman of the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council. It's been an interesting journey to this point. I came on when Tom Wheeler was still a supervisor for District 5 and Supervisor McCauley was then Chief of Staff. And one of the things we've been working on since I've been chair, again, I'm on my 5th year as chair here, 2 words I'd like to leave you with, or for you to consider as this presentation unfolds. Write them down if you would. Take out a pen. And those 2 words are micro transit. They're going to come up in the presentation, and you'll see why and how that is something that we have recommended before. We will be recommending again as something throughout the county and cities. And I'll be available for comment afterwards. And if you have any questions, I'm going to stay online with Natalia, but I'm turning this back over to Ms. Austin.
Thank you, Chair Simonis.
You in the operating.
All right, so there's the timeline for this cycle's unmet transit needs process. So as you can see, in August, we kicked off the unmet transit needs process, and then we attended several of the community events through the month of October. In October is where we held the required public hearing. The SSCAC also met in September and then in December to kick off the unmet transit needs process and then also to review comments. So now here we are in January, where this board will make the final determination on unmet transit needs for fiscal year 2026-27. Finally, in the upcoming months, February and March, we'll complete the final report for this, and then we'll send the required documentation to the state. So as we talked about at the October board meeting, the unmet transit needs process originates with the Transportation Development Act, which helps fund public transit and encourages coordination on regional transit issues. MCTC's role is to disperse those TDA funds to the local transit agencies and then make sure that the unmet transit needs process happens each year. Part of that includes working with the SSTAC, which is a council made up of transit riders, older adults, people with disabilities, and service providers to review public feedback. Their job is to help decide if a request is truly an unmet transit need and if it's reasonable to meet. So each year they bring their recommendations to the MCTC Policy Board. Public participation is a really big part of the unmet transit needs process. And while only one public hearing is required by law, we always go well beyond that. And as you might recall, the board approved shifting our unmet transit needs process from the spring to the fall to align ourselves with the opportunities to meet people where they are at fall community event. So we started in August with Supervisor Wamhoff's Coffee and Conversation event in the Madera Ranchos. We also had booths at the Madera County District Fair, Madera booths in the park, the Chowchilla Car Show, and the Oakhurst Fall Festival. We also sent out over 85 letters to interested groups and shared information through our social media and our newsletter, The Commission Vision. Flyers were also posted on the buses. And of course, we did have the required public hearing on October 22nd. So the SSTAC uses the board adopted definitions of unmet transit need and reasonable to meet as the basis for evaluation for all the comments that are received. And I have included the full definitions in the packet, and it starts on page 123. So the evaluation process looks something like this. First, the SSCAC looks at whether each comment describes an unmet transit need. If it doesn't meet the definition, then they don't go any further with it. If it does, then they look at whether that request meets the minimum criteria to be considered reasonable to meet, as defined by the MCTC Policy Board. So if a comment is considered an unmet transit need, but then not reasonable to meet, then that means that it doesn't meet one or more of the criteria. And so you can see in the packet the SSTAC's recommendations for each comment in the agenda. There are also policy considerations that the SSTAC has to keep in mind when determining if an unmet transit need is reasonable to meet. So according to the TDA statute, the fact that an unidentified transit need cannot be fully met based on available resources cannot be the only reason for finding that a transit need is not reasonable to meet. Here's another one. We all know that Madera County has significant road repair needs, but however significant they may be for this particular funding program, the statute says that those needs cannot be compared with transit needs. So using the Transportation Development Act policies and the MCTC Policy Board adopted definitions of unmet transit need and reasonable to meet as guidance, the SSTAC carefully evaluates all of the comments that are received. So before moving forward with this year's recommendations, we wanted to provide an update on what came out of last cycle's unmet transit needs process. So the board approved the SSTAC's recommendation for Madera County transit staff to survey Lavinia residents to better understand rider preferences. This action was prompted by several public comments indicating that the arrival times for the Easton Arcola Ripperdan Lavinia route did not provide sufficient time between trips, resulting in riders being stranded in Madera, unable to complete appointments, or choosing not to use the service altogether. So based on feedback from the majority of residents, the plan is to adjust the time points so that the bus will be arriving at 8 a.m. and 6:20 p.m. in Lavinia. Once this change is finalized, then Madera County will be keeping a close eye on how the service performs to see if it meets the needs of the residents. The change has not been rolled out yet. There are still some more moving parts. There's some logistics to work out, but the first step, which was surveying the residents, has been completed. So at this community events, we had a lot of great conversations with Madera County residents about the unmet transit needs process and transit service overall. Most people had general questions about transit services being offered, which worked out really well, especially at the Oakhurst Fall Festival, because I don't know if you've seen in the previous pictures, but the county's transit manager and the operations manager were set up right next to us. So we can easily just refer people right over and they can get their questions answered right there on the spot. We also heard several positive comments, particularly about the medical escort service in Eastern Madera County. So overall, the people that we spoke with either didn't know that there was transit service, which, surprise, surprise, we found those people. There were people who had specific questions about how to get where they needed to go, or if they were already really familiar with the service, they felt that there should be more service, more frequent trips, and more weekend options. And while everyone received a flyer with information on how to complete the quick survey, only a small number of people ultimately filled it out. So we received a total of 8 comments this cycle. 7 were from our online survey and 1 was from a comment letter. 6 of the comments were identified as potential unmet transit needs and were evaluated further by So let's look a little further at the potential unmet transit needs that were evaluated for Oakhurst. So there were 2 comments regarding service in Oakhurst, to add service from Oakhurst directly to the Fresno-Clovis area, and also to expand service locally. Service from Oakhurst to Fresno does exist. It just requires a transfer in Madera, which could make it a somewhat lengthy trip, but the service is there. Regarding the second one about expanding service locally, right now, MCC's fixed route service already stops at key residential and commercial locations. That said, not every shopping center or location can safely accommodate a full-size bus, which limits where fixed routes can go. So adding another run to the existing service in Eastern Madera County would cost about $251,000 a year. Currently, the Eastern Madera County route averages about 74 riders per day, or about 15 passengers per run. So to maintain the current 10% fare box recovery rate, we would need to see an additional, about 57 additional riders every day. And so the SSTAC, they didn't really have enough data to show that that level of ridership growth could be realistically achieved. So because of this, MCC is looking at microtransit as a potential alternative. Using smaller vehicles and on-demand approach, microtransit could possibly give people more flexibility, reach more places, and better meet the needs of riders in the Oakhurst area. And so we'll talk a little bit more about microtransit in a little bit, just like Frank alluded to. Okay, so here are the comments that we received regarding Lavinia. So following the SSTAC's recommendation and direction from the MCTC Policy Board, the county staff surveyed Lavinia residents in November of 2025 to make sure that any service changes reflected what the riders really wanted. So based on the feedback that was received, their arrival times into Lavinia are planned to be adjusted to 8 a.m. and 6:20 p.m., like we discussed in the previous slide. Current ridership on the Easton Arcola Ripperdan Lavinia route averages about 1.2 riders per day, though that number might improve with the planned service changes. So at this point, the SSTAC recommends giving these recent changes some time after they're implemented and closely monitoring to see how they might perform before making any additional adjustments. That said, again, that word, microtransit, it continues to be viewed as a potential option in the future if more flexibility or expanded service is needed in Lavinia. Regarding the Lavinia Streets bus stop, it has limited right-of-way space and it makes it challenging to add shelter and lighting. And there's a picture of it right there on the slide. This issue will need some additional investigation before any improvements can move forward. So the full recommendation for Madera County is that there are no unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet. And additionally, the SSTAC is recommending that the county identify and present a defined fiscal strategy to advance the implementation of a microtransit pilot project. So here's a fact. We know providing transit service in Madera County is a challenge. I like to call it a beast because we have urban, rural, and mountain communities, each with different transit needs. And so it makes a one-size-fits-all solution very difficult. Microtransit could offer a flexible way to serve some of Madera County's hardest to reach areas, whether that's helping someone get from Oakhurst to the Superior Court in Madera in the early morning, or improving service frequency in places like Lavinia.
Natalia, just one comment. If you can explain what microtransit is for those who might not know what microtransit is, if you can just explain like in 2 sentences what it is and then.
Okay, sure. You're right. I forgot that that everyone might know what microtransit is, and the transit manager could also fill in if I don't get it right. But microtransit has often been described as being like an on-demand service, kind of like a Uber or Lyft, but you do use smaller buses, so there is a shared ride. And you can use an app to kind of request service, much like you would an Uber or Lyft. But again, it's using a bus, and you may be sharing a ride with other individuals. Anything else?
That's good. Additionally, it's subsidized much like any other transit service. So it's like a subsidized Uber service. It's kind of the best way I've explained it.
So is the senior bus that runs around Oakhurst area, would you consider that to be microtransit? Because it is kind of on demand, scheduled by the user.
Very
Larger.
very similar, but it would be a smaller vehicle, and it would be and we would add an app so people could use the app to actually reserve their ride. And it uses different technology, so it's more efficient, generally speaking. So systems that transfer to a microtransit service typically have better efficiency, so they're able to provide more rides for the same money.
that good? Okay, so as we were saying, microtransit has been discussed among transit people as a way to address service gaps. And now that the county has already laid the groundwork by completing a microtransit feasibility study last year, the question is really how to move forward from planning to action. The county has been actively pursuing grant funding to secure funding for this. But the reality is that it's very competitive. And so that tells us that in order to seriously explore this option, then likely a dedicated funding source will need to be identified. So a pilot project could be a practical win-win approach. It would let microtransit be tested in real life, see what works, what needs adjusting, and whether it's viable here at all. And so at this point, it's really about moving from discussion to action. Either try it and learn from it, or decide it's not the right fit and move in a different direction. And so I'd like to turn it over now to Chair Frank Simonis, because he has some additional points that he'd like to share as to why the SSTAC is recommending further investigation into implementing a microtransit pilot in our county. Right?
Thank you, Ms. Austin. So microtransit it's just more cost effective, but it's also a service. For example, I'll use the mountains as an example. I live up in District 5. Some of you are aware of that. The current system for a person in my circumstance, and I came on to the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council as a disabled member of the public. So for those that don't know, I'm legally blind, and so I don't drive. So for me to get anywhere, to go to the grocery store, go to the doctor, go to church, go anywhere, go to the community center. Today I went to a Rotary meeting and I served as a judge for the Yosemite High School speech contest. I have to get a ride from someone else. The senior bus can't come to my house and pick me up. It's too big. It is not allowed to go up my driveway to my house because the rules from the provider don't allow them to back up. That's actually a rule. Now, I'm familiar with those. Back when I was able to see better, I worked in this county. Some of you know that. I was a reserve deputy sheriff. I was a training officer for Madera County and CAL Fire Department service. And I also served as a paramedic here. We weren't allowed to back up an ambulance or a fire engine either without another second person backing us. That's a real thing. That's not just a provider being silly. That's a real thing. Accidents happen that way. So that means the current system we have is not very feasible for a lot of users. For example, my driveway to the nearest county road, which fortunately the road where my driveway is off of happens to be a county road, is a half a mile. So it's winter, it's raining or snowing, and I need to go to the grocery store and I got to walk a half a mile. And then I'm only allowed to carry 3 bags on the bus for groceries and walk a half a mile back. In the summer, I might be able to pull that off, but not in the winter. What if I was 75 years old and I was told to do that? That's not feasible. Or if I had a walker. And I happen to be fortunate to live on a road where they would be able to stop at my driveway, but most people would have to walk to get to the nearest county road or told to walk down it on blind curbs in the mountains. There are no sidewalks up here. That means it's absolutely unfeasible and unreasonable for seniors and disabled people to be able to even get to the senior bus because it can't take you to your house. And if you could get to where the bus was by driving, you would just drive to where you were going to go in the first place. So we need to look at a solution that meets the needs in certain communities. And by the way, another community that meets this definition is Lavinia as well. We need to look at how we can better serve a community with a transit that actually serves people who need it, as opposed to saying, well, there is one, you just have to get to where the bus is. Where I live, if I could get to where the bus was, I'd be driving and I'd just go to where I needed to go. I can't drive, so it doesn't work for me. So this is something I've been working on literally for 5 years. on this council. And it's something we've identified 5 years ago as a need and been working on it ever since. We actually recommended that we put this plan into action last year. And in all honesty, nothing's been done. So we're recommending, look, this is time to make a decision. Are we going to implement a pilot program? Yes or no? And I would like to say, I'd like to see a yes. Let's get it going and see how viable it is, how it works. Does it need to be tweaked, or is it something that doesn't work? But we need to try to do something to meet the actual needs of residents. And this is something that honestly would do that. We could actually get to the people and get them a service that they could begin to use. And that would increase ridership drastically if people could actually use it. And it was already explained how it works. There'd be an app. It's not these full-size 16 or 18 passenger buses trying to go up your driveway. It would be a van or something similar. In other words, a more normal-sized vehicle that the average person might even operate themselves in their own business if they had. And I hope that helps explain what it would be. We're not talking about a bus going down driveways. It'd be smaller, a shared ride vehicle, like a van, for example. And that is something that we're looking at. And another thing to consider is this. Madera County used to have 2 courthouses, one in the valley, one in the mountains. Well, the mountain one was closed. People that have a court date, whether you've been subpoenaed to the court for whatever reason, or whether you've been called to jury duty, where I live, that's 60-mile commute each way, 120 miles a day. The county says, I'll give you $15 a day. I got news for you. That doesn't even cover the gas. And so it's becoming unreasonable for people even to meet civic duty in this county without having a better option, especially for those like me. I can't serve on jury duty because I can't get there. And, you know, in a way that's disappointing. In other ways, I kind of go, well, okay, and smile about it. But that's not meeting a civic need and a civic duty. So we have actual things for you as commissioners to really consider here. This is important. This is something that actually is serious. And it's something we'd like you to really make a decision on this year about a pilot program. I'll be available for questions if you have any. Otherwise, I'm turning this back over to Ms. Austin.
Thank you, Chair Slonis. Okay. With that, I'll just quickly move to the rest of the slides. Okay, so because we received no comment cycle for the city of Madera or Chowchilla systems, the SSTAC recommendation is that there are no unmet transit needs for fiscal year 26-27 for the city of Madera and the city of Chowchilla. The remaining comments that we received were either determined not to be unmet transit need, or they were more operational in nature, like bus timeliness or driver behavior, and those were forwarded to the appropriate agency to address. We also received some comments about the unmet transit needs process itself, and MCTC has provided written responses to those, which are also included in your packet. So of course, the immediate next step is for this board to make the final decision on unmet transit needs by resolution. And then after that, we'll finalize the unmet transit needs report, which will be included in the February or March policy board agenda. And then all the required documentation will be sent to the state. And then finally, the transit agency can begin to work on the solutions for the unmet transit needs that were identified, and then any other recommendations that were approved. And so with that, I'll try to answer any questions you may have. And as you know, we also have the transit manager from the county, Monty Cox, and also the SSTAC chair, Frank Simonis, to help answer any questions as well.
Thank you, Natalia. And again, thank you again. Mr. Chair Simonis, appreciate the comments and your sentiment regarding the microtransit. Certainly something to consider, especially for the agency as a county. At this time, I'll open it up to my colleagues for any questions to Natalia or Mr. Simonis.
Mr. Chair, I just have a comment in regards to microtransit, and Frank's right. It's something that, we really need to take a look at. When you think of fixed route transit, with all due respect to our transit managers, and you may agree with me, I mean, that's like prehistoric technology. That's something like from the 1930s, streetcars and things of that sort. And, our transit people, they're talking about we need more and more and more. And that's what they have in mind, is that fixed route transit. And it's insane because it doesn't fit California. California was built with the car. It was built spread out. It was not built in high density urban areas. That's just, the fact. It really exploded after after World War II, the baby boomers and so forth. And we built suburbs and things of that sort that are not conducive to these fixed route things. The other thing is that, the fixed route covers a lot of ground, and not everybody, uses fixed route. I know by my house, there's a fixed route bus that goes by, and they finally took the stop out because nobody ever rode it. There was some gal who was trying to rip off old people over at Cedar Creek, and they would sit at the bus stop and ride the bus, but that was about it. And so, and people look at these buses, with nobody on them, and they become people get criticized and things of that sort. Why are we having these buses roll around with nobody riding them? Whereas a micro transit, there's been at least anecdotal data that talks about how successful it is, especially if it's cost neutral and can be more effective. It's definitely something to look at. But yeah, fixed route type transit is just it's something that the state pushes. We need all this stuff, and it's nobody thinks, is there something else that we could do that really meets the needs of people, that's really effective, as Frank was pointing out. So it's something that I think we definitely need to consider.
Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Poitras. Anyone else on the commission wishing to make any comments or questions?
Yeah, just a quick double up there. I just want to reiterate, I think the microtransit's a great idea. I just want to thank Mr. Simonis for all his work. Appreciate you, Frank. Keeping on this topic. I know it's a big one. We've talked a lot about it. I am curious though, from a process standpoint. So recommendation reviewed by this commission, if it's approved, it then goes to county, and then Monty, you're going to come talk to us about microtransit at the Board of Supervisors, or is that?
I can give you an update on the progress that we make once we get the implementation plan pulled together. We're still working on that.
Okay.
Especially now that we couldn't get we've tried 3 different grant sources. We tried 3 different grant sources to get a dedicated grant so that we could do a demonstration, and none of those were successful, unfortunately. So we're now looking at how to implement it in stages so that we can use the funding that we have. We may have to move some other projects around and do some stuff to be creative, but we'll probably implement it slower. Implement one zone at a time, and we have up to 6 or 7 zones to do when we're finally done. So that may take a couple of years to do that, but we're trying to pull that plan together at this point. That's really all we've got, and we'll continue to look for some other grant funding that we could tap into to do it faster, but that's where we're at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Do we have some kind of a cost analysis done? I mean, how much is going to cost to do this micro experiment?
Yeah, so we did a study last year to design the microtransit service and make recommendations, and that study included cost information. So we do kind of have a good idea of how much more it's going to cost over our existing transit services. And that's the amount that we've been trying to achieve a grant for.
So is that information come to the Transportation Commission, or that goes to the county?
I believe we brought it, we did a presentation on the microtransit study a couple of years ago when it was done.
Thank you.
Thank you again, commissioners. And Monty, just so that you know, we have excellent audio, so I can hear you sitting down. Appreciate you standing up to the podium, though, just to let people know that we do. There at the MCTC chambers, it looks like we have a really good audio. So thank you again. I did just want to echo some of the sentiments I heard from both of my colleagues there regarding the micro transit. And I think we can all attest that when we take a trip down to a DC or Sacramento and we're advocating, we typically don't use the local transportation. We rely on micro transit such as Uber and or Lyft, and it's on demand. We want to get somewhere, we get there within minutes, and it's just it's at the palm of your hands where you can certainly get from point A to point B. And I think, you know, even at the city, we're starting to take a look at this study here because, like Commissioner Poitras said, we do see these buses that go down the street with sometimes no riders. And that sometimes it's sad to see because even though they're fixed routes, it is antiquated. It is a system that probably works more in the urban areas where you see more of that transit. But here in rural communities like ours, I think the micro transit is certainly warranted. And I do appreciate Mr. Simones again. Natalia, thank you again. I appreciate you making those surveys in both English and Spanish. I think you really hit the nail there by providing you know, these surveys in areas that are mostly needed. But thank you again. Appreciate that. If there's no other questions, I can open this up to, yes, Mr. Simone.
Yes, thank you. Just one point. Keep in mind, we do have money that comes in through taxation. Measure T is part of it, others, where there is money that is legislated to be used for transit. I think $7 million a year right now for us. And that money must be used for transit first and cannot be allocated to roads unless it is determined that the transit needs are met. So there are funds. There are funds that we can look at to help institute a pilot. I don't know if it's enough, but there are things that we have for you all to consider because I think this is a very good alternative going forward. And I believe the cities will benefit too in time because it may be a cheaper alternative to a lot of the older fixed route service.
Thank you, Mr. Simones. And to your point, Monty, I think you mentioned something about how this will be implemented, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's already quite a few cities that may be, or other jurisdictions that may be implementing some micro transit that we can certainly, you know, mimic and try to bring that to our county and our cities. That being said, I'll now open this up to public. Do we have anyone from the public wishing to make a comment?
You have another comment.
We have one hand raised. Ms. Urdebe, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Andrea Uribe here with Leadership Council. And I just wanted to use this time to express my gratitude to the Madera County staff members. Monty and Geraldine went out with us and we door knocked on every door in Lavinia and made sure that this was a time change that the community wanted. We know community members have been advocating for more bus routes and more transit out within the community. So I appreciated the time that the county staff took to go out with us and talk to community members along that same wavelength. We appreciated Natalia and her team, Dylan and some of the other MCTC staff members for also attending some of the community meetings with us. We hope to continue working together and seeing how microtransit develops to better address the needs within Madera County. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public and or Zoom wishing to make a comment?
I just want to mention that we have our in-house person, Evelyn Espinoza, who does translate all of our surveys and the comments and everything into Spanish to make sure that they're bilingual and that they're more accessible to the members in the community.
Yes, thank you. And in reading some of those surveys, I appreciate the context that was in there. Again, thank you, Evelyn, and thank the MCTC staff for making sure that we hit these areas of bigger need. That being said, any other comments and or questions from public? If not, then I can entertain a motion. This item does require us to approve the Social Service Transportation Advisory's unmet transit needs findings.
So move.
Second.
Okay, Sandy, will you take roll?
Commissioner Poitras.
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed,
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers. Chair Rodriguez.
Yes.
Your motion carries.
All right, moving on to item 5C, award contract, Regional Climate Adaptation and Resilience Framework for Madera County. I believe this is Natalia.
Actually, it's me.
Okay. Me, Troy.
Yeah, good afternoon. This item is to award the contract for the Regional Climate Adaptation and Resilience Framework for the Madera County project. As a reminder, MCTC was awarded a competitive $535,000 Caltrans Climate Adaptation Grant to help complete this project. The board authorized the release of the request for proposals at its October board meeting. We received 6 proposals from qualified firms. The evaluation and scoring committee reviewed the applications, and after completing the review process, the evaluation committee is recommending that a contract be awarded to the firm Mark Thomas. Staff concur with this recommendation and ask the board to award the contract to Mark Thomas in an amount not to exceed $575,000 and direct staff to negotiate and execute the final contract terms. The project will take a little over 2 years to complete. I can answer any questions, and there may be people on the line that may want to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. McNeil. At this time, I'll ask my commission if there's any questions for Troy.
Mr. Chair, I just have a question. How many firms bid this contract?
6 firms.
6.
Yeah, and all the firms except for one, I believe, had sub-consultants as well. Anyway, as the procurement officer, I felt like this is one of our better responses for the grant. I'm not sure because of the amount, but it should be a good project. We got highly qualified firms bidding on it.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, just a couple comments, questions in regards to the RFP. I did read through it and I noticed there was no mention of snow and snow removal in the RFP. And I just want to make sure that, you know, when we're working with Mark Thomas, that there is some considerations to that. We had a very large unforeseen expense on the county side back in 23 as a result of the disaster declaration. I think we had some issues there with recovery from FEMA and Cal OES. Definitely something that I want to make sure is on the Mark Thomas radar. Also, when we were looking at, you know, who we're going to be interviewing and talking with, I noticed under first responders, we didn't have our ambulance services listed as folks that they should be working with. So I just kind of feel like that should be important. We also didn't have Forest Service listed as emergency responders, and they are very important partners, especially in the state responsibility area. And then when we're looking at roads, I think I noticed that Forest Service roads were not included in the study area. And that's particularly important in my district where we have existing roads that could serve as evacuation routes, but they're currently Forest Service roads. Thornbury Mountain Road is a perfect example of this. It's a road the county's looked at improving, which would improve traffic flow from North Fork over to 41, as well as, you know, serve as an alternative evacuation route. Would also cut response times down for our ambulance partners significantly. So I just want to make sure that as we're going through this study, that we're looking at all these little facets that are extremely important to me, my district, as well as the rest of the county.
Appreciate those comments. I'm looking at Ty, will be the project manager, and we'll incorporate those in as acceptable and reasonable according to the grant terms. So we will incorporate everything we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McCauley. Is there any other commissioner wishing to make a comment or a question? If not, then we can open this up to the public. Any member of the public wishing to make a comment or question?
Seeing none on there.
Okay, we have none. This item is up for approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, Sandy, can you please take roll?
Commissioner Poitras.
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed,
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers.
Yes.
Chair Rodriguez.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to MCTC sitting as the Madera County Transportation Commission. Item 6, reaffirm all actions taken while sitting as a Transportation Policy Committee.
Move to
You want
approve.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we have first and second. Sandy, can you take roll?
Commissioner Poitras,
Aye.
Commissioner Rogers.
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed,
Yes.
Commissioner McCauley,
Yes.
Chair Rodriguez,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item 7, administrative consent items. Any member of this board wishing to pull any items for separate discussion? There's only one.
Move for approval.
All right, I'll ask the public if there's any comments. If not, then you have a motion. All right. Motion and second. Sandy, can you please take roll?
Commissioner Poitras,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed,
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers.
Yes.
Chair Rodriguez,
Yes.
your motion carries.
Okay, we don't have any administrative action discussion items, so we'll move on to MCTC, sitting as the Madera County 2006 Transportation Authority. Item 9, again, administrative consent items. There is none, so we'll move on to item 10, authority action discussion items. Item 10A, this is the Measure T Regional Program, programming of available funds.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This might be a little lengthy. There was a lengthy staff report in the packet. I'll try to be concise today with my verbal report. This item is to award available Measure T regional funds to the State Route 233 multimodal interchange project. The staff report in the packet did contain a lot of the details regarding the history of this project and some information regarding the regional program, for example, flexible funds. And I will try to be more, as I said, be more concise. Measure T revenues over the last few years have exceeded forecasted projections, resulting in unprogrammed funds available in the regional program, specifically in the regional streets and highways and flexible funds categories. Staff recommends allocating these available funds to phase 2 of the Measure T regional program, specifically to the State Route 233 interchange multimodal improvement project to help to support the full funding of this regional project. Phase 2 of the regional program contains 6 projects. Of the 5 other projects, 2 projects have been completed. 1 fully funded project should begin construction hopefully within this next year. And 2 projects have not made any progress to date. This leaves the State Route 233 project as the current project in the regional program that is making progress towards construction. And so here's a little bit of background about this project. The 233 project was first added to the regional program in June 2013 during programming of phase 2 of the delivery of the regional program projects. The 233 project has been in development since that time. The environmental document started in March of 2014. Over the years, there have been many discussions on several options for the scope of this project and how to fund those options. These discussions over time unfortunately delayed the approval of the environmental document. Eventually, it was decided that roundabouts on each side of the bridge would be constructed while expanding the bridge from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, possibly done in phases due to the cost of construction and available funding. To help fund the construction of the project, 2 local partnership program or LPP applications were submitted, one in 2022 and one in 2024, and both were unsuccessful. Discussions with California Transportation Commission staff were encouraging regarding a 3rd application for the upcoming award cycle and that the project aligns better now with the timing. Environmental clearance was obtained in August 2023, and MCTA entered into a cooperative agreement to begin the full design phase. Caltrans is moving forward to complete design to help the project be shelf ready. At this point, there are 2 issues to resolve to move towards a fully funded project. As mentioned, firstly is to program the additional available regional program funds for this project. The additional funds will allow the ability to provide sufficient match necessary for the requested LPP funds for the construction phase. After reviewing the available funding and financial policies regarding the programming of regional funds, including prioritizing shelf-ready and/or progressing projects, staff recommend that the available funds be allocated to the 233 project. This additional Measure T funding will ensure the project remains on schedule and leverages external funding opportunities to maximize regional transportation improvements. The second issue is to resolve the remaining potential gap in construction funding needed due to the current inflationary pressures on the continued rise in construction costs for the full build of the project. The current estimated need for construction costs is approximately $45 million. With the additional regional program funds, the gap still is approximately $14 to $16 million for a full build out. To close this gap, scope can be reduced or additional funding needs to be obtained. Staff is working with the City of Chowchilla and Caltrans to find solutions soon for the second issue. City of Chowchilla staff indicated that they felt like they couldn't move forward with some of the solutions until the first issue was resolved. Thus, this item today to address the first issue. Also, brought to my attention that we might have some conflict in some of the policies regarding the flexible funds. In some language, we see the language forfeiture of funds, and in some in other documents, we see that any use of impounded funds need to receive approval from the local agencies. So that's something that we do need to address as well, and we can bring back an item to address that. I still feel that as staff, we recommend approval of this funding allocation, and we can add that it being contingent on resolving the policies or obtaining the necessary approvals from the local agencies. I believe there's people in the room and online that might make additional comments regarding this item. And so I'll defer to Rod, the city administrator, City of Chowchilla. Rod, did you want to make any additional comments regarding this?
Yeah, thanks, Troy. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Not to relive all the history because Troy's already kind of done that, but this project has been going on for quite some time now, and finally made some good headway in the project, and Caltrans is hopefully almost done with things on the design side of it. It's really coming to a point where, we have to kind of decide one way or another what's going to happen with it. The cost increases the more and more we wait, and the longer it goes, they just go up just incredible amounts. And we get further and further away, the gap gets bigger and bigger, and we are committed to completing this project. And we are, as Troy mentioned, we've gone after 2 grants. We're going to go after another grant, another run of the LPP grant. And we are also in the process right now of applying for a build grant, which is a federal grant, which this project does have a NEPA on. So we are exploring all options. We really just kind of want to see this project through. It's a huge benefit to the city. The secondary bridge is important for public safety for us because that bridge is the only way to get across town without going all the way around. So if there happens to be an accident on the current bridge, that's just the 2 lanes, and public safety can't get across it. They have to go all the way down 24, come across. So it has public safety impacts as well as traffic flow impacts. And we're really just hopeful that these additional funds will be committed to the project, which will help us close the gap, and we can move forward with the project.
Thank you, Rod. We did have Ellen.
Thank you, Chairman Rodriguez and members of the board. I'm Ellen Bitter. I'm with the City of Madera. And first, I want to say we support the City of Chowchilla's project. I know it's been a long time coming, and it's a great need. And to that end, as far in the matter of the regional Measure T, we don't oppose if the board elects to allocate that to this project. In the staff report and the recommended action, it's recommending allocating 4.7 million of the regional funds and then 3.5 million of the flexible funds due to the increase in tax revenue, which is a good thing, to the project. my concern is on allocating the flexible funds. And that comes from the strategic plan that was adopted in 2021 that says authority approval is required to use impounded funds from one agency to finance a project of another agency. So is it, the action today would also take flexible funds from the other agencies, the County of Madera and the City of Madera, to assist with funding this project. And for the measure, flexible funds, if they're not used in the regional program, can be used for maintenance and rehab projects, transit, bicycle projects, to meet its word flexible. So I think it's worth considering what that impact might mean to the other agencies, and perhaps look at the two actions separately, one for the regional and one for the flexible pod. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
If I may, Mr. Chair, just comment and add some additional comments. I appreciate the comments from Rod and from Ellen. It does provide more context and more information. The investment plan uses the word impounded and forfeit of funds, and that's how we've always administered the funds. To be transparent, we've never had any agreements with the local agencies in using the flexible funds for other projects. And so that would be something that would be a new thing that we've done. And so that's something that we would need to resolve. That the strategic plan was developed in secondary to the investment plan. The investment plan is what the voters approved. Those are like our controlling legislation. So it sounds like we need to resolve that policy. And so I still recommend some type of action today, and then we can bring back the item at the next meeting to clarify the policies.
Thank you, Troy. I'll give this opportunity now to some of the commission to see if they have any questions.
Mr. Chair, I just have a couple of questions. I recall this, I've been on MCTC since 2005, actually. And so I recall this project, you know, it seems like it's been around forever. Wasn't there, like, it seems to me there's like maybe some local political pressure that did not want the roundabout at one time, and then that kind of delayed the project. And then it seemed like it was, okay, we'll go, but it seemed like there was at least some turmoil locally, because, you know, there's a lot of disagreement.
Story, may I?
Yes, please. This is probably going back before you. Yeah.
Since I've been on the council or been on the planning commission, there was a little bit of a roundabout, but that is just a matter of educating the public once we had the town hall meetings and everything. But initially it started off as a completely new overpass. And because that was a very expensive project, the size of our community, and also was going to take some businesses away. So, that was, put aside. But at the end of the day, we all know, because of the safety concerns, because there is, like our administrator already mentioned, in case of an accident and all that, because of the ADA requirements, the history and the life expansion of the bridge, it always gets delayed. And every time it seems like we come close to the end line, and because of the inflation and everything, it gets further kicked away. To me, we always have been, own this project and wanted to complete this project, but just seems like the funding of it is just going to get pushed away. So
just out of reach. Here's the funding.
Yeah, it's not the community. What I'm trying to say, it's not the community. It's just the funding issue is the one that comes down to, and the inflation. And it's like a chicken or the egg. At one time we decided to try to keep the cost down, to take it on our own and trying to complete this project. But then all these other new requirements get put on because of the delayed and Caltrain and everything else that wanted to do some additional environment. So it's getting more and more expensive. So bottom line is, we like to get the support of the being in the community as a safety concern, looking as a regional project, and it will be a great project to overall that everybody can get benefit out of.
So I asked, Wasim to kind of add into that comment, and then no, that was really good. Thank you for that historical context. So I'm all in favor of it. I like it. I think we've got a great council in Chowchilla, great administration. Everybody's on board. Everybody's going the right direction. So I like that. That's I'm thinking in the communities. I think at one time that wasn't the case and kind of delayed things, but that is the case today, and it's a great benefit for a community in our north part of the county that's a great economic driver, and so I think that'll really be a huge project, a great one.
Thank you. Commissioner Poitras, any other member of the commission?
Yeah, I think I introduced this back 2011, and there was a little opposition to the roundabout at that time, and then as Wasim said, through the communications in the community, it came to the conclusion there was no cheaper way to do it, and so it's gone that way. But what I was going to say is, it was dangerous at that point. Almost 15, 16 years ago, it was dangerous at that point, and it's even more so now. I mean, I go through there almost regularly in the morning and afternoons, and the traffic is backed up on the 99 from that interchange regularly. It's really pathetic. If one little thing happens right there, they're backed up onto the freeway. And people can't come off the freeway and go the other way over the overpass, and it's hard enough to turn and go to Green Hills. So it's pretty aggressive problem. It's really a huge issue for the community right there. That, and probably a light at Fig Tree, and what is that street right there in front of Reagan School?
Is it David Rogers Boulevard?
Well, probably, yeah, someday, right? But anyway, it backs up. It backs up pretty good in the morning, school time. There's probably, I'd say, 50 to 100 cars at least backed up right there in the morning. So those issues need to be resolved for that community. And I don't think you can get to the stoplight until this gets resolved. I think it's kind of like one thing falls, then another, and this has got to go. This has got to happen, because those circumstances are such that there's going to be a major collision right there sometime. I see little accidents there all the time, but it's coming.
Mr. Chair, just if you're all finished.
I'm done, thank you.
Mr. Chair, so from a process standpoint, your recommendation is we're looking at the flexible funds, or excuse me, the regional funds today, and then you're going to come back next
Yeah,
month
that's what I
with
was
the
going to provide. Is
funds.
I think that we can definitely approve the regional streets and highways funds of 4.7 million. And then the flexible funds, we could bring back next month, trying to resolve some.
I'll make that motion.
Some of these issues.
If I could just.
Yeah, and if I may, before I did want to add my comments. Thank you again, Commissioner McCauley. Appreciate you making sure that was the motion. But one of the comments that I heard from Mr. Pruitt and maybe you, Troy, earlier is that you still don't have the full funding for this project. Is that correct?
If we do the full scope build out as intended, there's still a potential gap. There is a gap. If they do the limited scope, if they were to receive all of this $8 million, it gets us pretty close to having a fully funded project.
Still.
Can I ask, when you say limited scope, can you be more specific?
So I'll defer to Rod or Caltrans. Basically, the full build out has some artistic treatments to enhance the roundabouts, to add more than just the bare minimum of the roundabouts. Aesthetic, there you go. There's the word. Some aesthetic treatments and aesthetic improvements. that do cost money. That adds, a few million. There's also some other design changes that they would do that would reduce cost. I don't have them on the top of my head. I'm not sure if Rod has those, if you have those top of your head, Rod, but we can come back at next meeting and provide a little more information on some of those limited scopes. Basically, the Chowchilla City Council is going to have to address those and make that decision of what do they want to see and how we're going to resolve that gap. But if we were to get this full 8.5 million that was on the staff report today of the regional and flexible, and in addition to getting the LPP grant, which we're optimistic to getting, we should have a funded project.
If I may, Troy, I'm sorry, you have some contingencies there, the LPP grant, you said, that's the other, that has to come first before we have a fully funded project, even with the flexible funds, correct?
We still need the LPPB grant. As I mentioned, we're optimistic that this third time will be the charm that lines up better with the award cycle with the readiness of the project.
Great. I think Mr. Pruitt had his hand up. I did have one last comment, but I'll let Mr. Pruitt answer. I think he may have an answer for the question asked earlier.
Yeah, so another, on top of the items that Troy mentioned, another reduction of the scope that would have to be considered would be doing a secondary bridge at a later date and time. So as it's already been approved right now through Caltrans, if the second bridge is put up, which would be the additional 2 lanes, it would have a signed off for a 20-year life. If not, and we just keep the one that we currently have, we run into the problem of that, say in 10 years, when if we're able to get additional funding, whatever that time frame is for the bridge, it wouldn't get signed off on as being acceptable. And then that bridge would have to be knocked down, and then the cost would just skyrocket again. So while not doing the secondary bridge is an option, it poses its own risks, and costs would be a lot more, say, in the future, if it didn't get our current bridge didn't get approved to add the secondary bridge. Then the whole thing would have to be knocked down and both bridges be built from scratch.
Thank you, Rod. So I believe that there was a modified motion, but before we get that, I did want to give an opportunity for the public to have any comments.
Here, I still had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that you, Commissioner McCollum?
Yes, it was, and I think I'm on also. I had a question.
Go right ahead.
So I think I'm just trying to better understand the path forward, right? I'm not opposed to the project, favor the project, but worst case scenario would be we approve these items and then there's delays, and 20 years later we're still having this conversation. Like, right? That is what failure looks like in my eyes. So I'm just again trying to better understand. Yes, we have a grant we're waiting for results from. It sounds like this funding would make us more competitive for that grant. But worst case scenario, the funds are not awarded. Where are we?
Basically, the project would be at a standstill.
May I, Chairman? See, that brings me back to the same as the Commissioner McCallum just mentioned, is the last 2 applications were unsuccessful because of the funding gap. So that's where, at least to us, is like we have to, yeah. I mean, we have to meet the funding gap to make the application to be successful. So to me, if we're doing this piecemeal, we're never going to get to the finish line.
Thank you, Commissioner McCauley. Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a question going back to the flexible funds. So the recommendation today was the approving not only the regional funds, but the flexible funds, right?
That was the original recommendation, yes.
Okay, so now what happens? So it sounds like there's a movement to not approve the flexible funds today. What happens in terms of the project itself, moving forward, not doing anything with the flexible funds? I know it increases that gap temporarily to like 20 million. If we approve the flexible funds, it's more like 15 or 14 to 16 million gap. So if we, and so it looks like we're punting that part to next week. At least that's what the suggestion is. And what would be a possible outcome next month with the flexible funds? What would be some possible scenarios as far as the divvying up on that? Because, I guess I'm looking at this project and I'd love to see the thing happen, and, we could obviously in our county, in our jurisdictions, we could use that 3.5 million, divvy it up or whatever. But, again, I think that we need to get behind, this particular project as the city and the county and move it forward because it's, it helps everybody. It's, everybody's got their pet projects and things of that sort. I'm with the county and I live in the city, but, I'd sure like to see this thing happen. So what could happen? Maybe those flexible funds not get allocated towards this project.
I envision a scenario where we would sit down with our local agencies to resolve some of these discrepancy in some of the policies, and then coming back to the board with the resolution to that and with the recommendation to move forward. I mean, that's my intent is, as the kind of the funding person, behind this as far as programming. This is a regional project, as you stated, and so I think the intent is to try to figure out how do we move this project forward. It's our only current project that is a regional project that's progressing. Mm-hmm. And so if we don't allocate the funds, then does it go on another project, or do we wait till the end of the measure and divvy up those funds to the local agencies of whatever is left? And that's a possibility. I would hope that we would commit to the regional program, kind of what we started. That it may not turn out that way after the discussions.
Okay, so you're going to be like arm wrestling people or something,
Absolutely.
or you're going to be, trying to negotiate peace and get the Nobel Peace Prize.
That's our role with, that's our role at MCTC, right? Is to try to find consensus among the jurisdictions. That's what's one of our roles. That's what we do, and so we'll try to find consensus with this issue. It was kind of brought to light at the last minute, and so if we were kind of aware of it sooner, we would have got consensus before bringing this item, because that is our nature, is to come with consensus on any of our items, and that's historically what we've done. So my intention is to come back the next month with action for approval.
Excellent.
We'll see what happens.
Thank you. Because, again, we really need to move forward, with all the applications they're doing. It's been so long. And I think, and again, everybody, we need to really collaborate and get behind this one project, and, I've talked often about not having, I mentioned not having a dog in a fight, but I do, because this is even though it's in the city of Chowchilla, it's still in Madera County. I'm a Madera County supervisor, and they're co-citizens. I mean, they're co-constituents, it's in Supervisor Rogers' district, but again, Supervisor McCauley is a county supervisor. He votes on county stuff. I do too. So, I feel an obligation, to complete projects there. So anyway, so I would hope that all the jurisdictions can come together and work this thing out so we can get this project moving.
And if I may, we have a history of doing that on other projects.
Absolutely.
Ellis Street overcrossing, Avenue 12 interchange, the State Route 41 passing lanes. I mean, we have history of working together on various regional projects.
Right. And again, as a commission, we work together on each other's projects. I mean, it's not even, we're elected in certain districts, but we have to take our district hat off and who we are and what's the best use of those funds, so that's it. And it's right here.
Thank you, Commissioner Poitras. I know that, Mr. Pruitt, do you still have your hand up? Or is that, from a previous, comment?
No, I just wanted to add one more comment, and Troy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he kind of just alluded to it, that all the entities flex funds have always gone towards the regional project. So to not do it now would be something that has not been done in the past. And I'm not sure why it's an issue now and was never an issue before. And it's just coming out at the last minute. So I just want to make sure that, everybody's aware, like, granted, ours are not as much as other entities because we're smaller, but our flex funds have gone towards regional projects. Every time a regional project's done, that's the way it's been done in the past. So this request would be a deviation from what has always been done.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. Appreciate that. To Troy's point earlier, I think this was something that was shed to light not too long ago. So I think the prudent approach would be to just take this back and bring it back for approval. I think, like you said, Troy, that you would get consensus on that. So I don't think that any of our local jurisdictions, whether it's the city or the county, would oppose to it, but give them the opportunity to comment, if any. I believe there was a modification to that motion, or is this still something that the board desires to move forward with?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to see one other thing, to Rod's comment about precedents that's already been set. And then for us to, move from that precedent, is kind of gives me a foul taste, because I think that it considers fairness. It's a project that's currently the only one that's going on. And I don't know what last minute means. Was this brought up just yesterday or the day before or something, or?
It was brought to light today.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I didn't know that. Okay. Then I already know how I'm voting. And it's not going to be to bring it back next month. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So with that, I'll open this up now to public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to make a comment or have a question? I'm not sure if I had opened that up earlier.
None online.
Okay. So I'll bring this back now to.
Yeah, I'll just clarify my motion. My motion would be to include all the funding that was discussed.
Regional and flexible.
Regional and flexible funds. All. I think there's precedent there for that. So.
So
I'm happy to second that motion, but I do have a question before we vote, if I may. One more.
Yes, go right ahead, Commissioner McCauley. I had a comment myself prior to the motion there, so go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what happens if they don't get the grant and we're not able to complete the funding gap? So what happens 2-3 years from now to those funds? They just sit in Chowchilla's account, or?
Right now, so all the funds are held at the county treasury. Basically we would have to discuss, do we go for a fourth application for LPP, because it's a 2-year cycle. So every 2 years we apply, they program 2 years. And so each time, the first two, the second application was better than the first. And one of the reasons why they said it didn't, they thought that if we came back a third time, it better aligned. The project would be ready more for when the funding would be available for the program. And so that was one of the reasons why it didn't score as high in that area, in that criteria. And so they recommended that we do come back a third time, and that they felt like it was a good project. It doesn't guarantee anything.
Sure.
We don't know what else will be applied, but it is what it is, and we have to keep trying. But if it doesn't, we need to make the decision. Now what?
For that particular LPP grant, they're developing or fine-tuning the guidelines. We won't know whether or not this project is funded until probably June 2027. And that LPP grant, because the applications will be due in the fall of this year.
Thank you, Executive Director Taylor, for your comments. I just wanted to make, just my last comment here before we get to this vote. I believe there's a first and a second. Earlier, I thought I heard a modified version of it, but I feel this is something that was brought up somewhat last minute, and I do feel like there should be some form of communication with the local jurisdictions. I did hear something from our engineer earlier, so I'm going to abstain from this vote here. I just want to make sure that I put this on record. It's not for the lack of not supporting it. I just feel like there should be an opportunity for these local jurisdictions to have some input and feedback. And not breaking from precedents as it was described earlier, but rather just communication. So that being said, I think there is a first and a second. Sandy, can you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Rogers?
Yes.
Commissioner McCauley?
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Commissioner Poitras?
Aye.
Chair Rodriguez abstains.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-5.
Okay, so now we're moving on to item 11, and this is the part where I can start saying thank you. I wanted to take this opportunity. It says other items miscellaneous. Item 11A, election of officers, election of chairperson and vice chairperson for the calendar year 2026. Before we jump into this, I just wanted to take this opportunity to give thanks to our executive director, Patricia Taylor, to my entire commission and the MCTC staff for supporting me and helping me continue to be the chair that I was for 2025. Thank you again. I'll now turn this over to our executive director.
Before you is the elections of officers for chair and vice chair. To give you a little bit of history, the way it works is, currently the vice chair is Supervisor Poitras. It's a county representative at this time. Then they rotate the city rotates every year. So the next would be the city of Chowchilla. And then Chowchilla, if it went accordingly, would be the chair the following year, and then we would go back to Madera County. And so that's how it works. Before you today would be first the nomination of a chairperson, and then in one action if we can, and then we'll do another action for vice chair.
Thank you, Executive Director Taylor. At this time, we'll take nominations for the chairperson moving into 2026.
Nominate Robert Whitman.
I second that.
All right, you have that nomination, you first and second. Sandy, you take roll.
Commissioner McCauley?
Aye.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers?
Yes.
Commissioner Poitras?
Aye.
Chair Rodriguez?
Yes.
Thank you.
I heard some murmuring. There was no other nominations, right? I couldn't really hear back there, but I think we're good, right? Congratulations, Chair Poitras. I think at this time you can take over the meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Thanks for your service. And we have a pin here, a 2/3 used pin that we're gonna give to you, as a present, but we'll give it to you next meeting. So thank you. So now we'll open it up for the election, the vice chair. I'll accept nominations at this time.
Nominate Commissioner Ahmed.
We have a nomination.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner McCauley?
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers?
Yes.
Chair Poitras?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
All right. Congratulations. Great effort. All right, good. All right, thanks for coming here on your deathbed.
Thank you, man.
We needed you.
I needed to be here.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to item 11B. First, items from staff.
Looks like we're in the thank you mode. And first on my list is to thank Chair Rodriguez, Councilmember Rodriguez, for his service as chair for 2025. Also joining and partnering with us through a number of different conferences, Valley Voice Trips, DC and Sacramento. Your questions are always excellent. So I look forward to, and we all look forward to working with you as a commissioner moving forward and attending those same events. So thank you for your service, Councilmember Rodriguez. Also, probably should have started with Happy New Year. It isn't the end of the January yet, so I can still say that. So Happy New Year to all. Some of you, it's the first time I've seen you this year, so Happy New Year. I also wanted to apologize for the hiccups we had for trying to, get a quorum for this meeting today. I know a number of you, I had emailed and text over the weekend, so thank you for your response. Thank you for attending, arranging your schedules. Myself, along with staff, we'll be looking at our calendars. We do release the calendar a year in advance. It has been a meeting that has been held every third Wednesday, sometimes fourth Wednesday of every month, 3 p.m. We will be sending forward, once we find out with the confirmations of who will be sitting on our board and who's received appointments, we'll send out calendar invites, put a placeholder on your calendars moving forward. And I think Dylan has a couple of comments that he would like to make as well. So if he may, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Briefly, I just want to report an update on an item that we've covered in 2025, the Clean Air Act rescission for California from the White House. We did several reports on that, on the potential impacts. During 2025, especially in the fall, CARB technical staff did a lot of work to revise their emission tool, the MFAC model. They were able to submit that to CARB, as I reported at our November meeting. Or not, excuse me, not CARB, but EPA. EPA has to approve their model. They did so in record timing. I mentioned there's some models that were in limbo for years. They were able to review this in about a month, get it back to California, and as of this year, we were able to begin testing and using that model to amend our plans or approve new plans, such as our RTP, as well as do air quality conformity analysis for our federal requirements. That being said, we should note the belt is tighter on that model. So we're not getting the benefit of the policies California assumed in their Clean Air Act waiver in this model anymore. So we're still waiting on the results of these tests to see where our partners in the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, the other 8 counties also fare, as well as all the other MPOs in the state are doing a lot of testing too to figure out if they're in a position to amend or approve new plans. So we have the tool, but now we're hard at work figuring out where we land with these new data sets within that model. So we'll keep you posted. We'll have more information in the months to come as we develop out our RTP SCS scenarios and how they perform in light of our air quality requirements.
Sounds very good. Thank you, Dylan. Any other staff members? Seeing and hearing none, let's move on to the star of the show from Caltrans.
All right. Thank you, new Mr. Chair. I'll make this brief in the interest of time. I know that everybody's been here for a couple of hours. Couple of quick announcements. I do have a new office chief in planning. It's Mr. Braden Duran. Some of you have probably worked with Braden in the past. Braden oversees our system planning branch, regional planning, local developer review, investment planning, climate change and adaptation, community outreach, transit, a lot of stuff. So
he's overseas right now, right?
yeah, he is overseas. He actually oversees those, and he is overseas. He's in Hong Kong right now, sending me pictures every day. Yeah, so looking forward to him coming back. He'll be back next week. In the rare instance there's a scheduling conflict with me, Braden may attend these meetings in my stead, or Director Navarro. That would be my preference. Send Michael over here.
Yes.
Full confidence in Braden, but I think Michael would love to see everybody. Grant update, the 2026-2027 Sustainable Transportation Planning grants. Those are the ones that applications were due back in November. District 6, we've received 10 within the district. 2 have come out of this Madera region, 1 from Madera County and 1 from MCTC. Those are currently under review by the district and by headquarters. We are expecting announcements May or June. It's gonna be a little while still. We want to take a minute to talk about the SHOP program. Director Taylor, we met with Director Navarro and Nabila. Actually, it was last month, wasn't it? It was December. Yeah. So the SHOP, which you've probably heard of in the past, is the state's Fix It First program. This is with the funding that Caltrans uses to maintain our pavement, our bridges, our culverts, and our ITS elements. SHOP funding has not changed. It has not gone down, but what we've been seeing is an increase in the usage of SHOP funding for not only emergency projects, but cost increases, project cost increases. So that has had an effect on the SHOP program pretty significantly, which has caused us to do what we're calling a rebalancing. It's essentially just like your checkbook. If all of a sudden you get hit with a huge expense, things have got to get shifted and moved out. It's important to point out that this shift, this rebalancing is not a deletion of projects. It's going to be a delay. We're talking about a 1 year to possibly 2 year delay on some projects. We're trying to time them in a way that it would be unfelt and unseen. If we can go to the CTC at the right time and advertise and go to construction at the right time, it could just be a few months delay instead of a full year or 2 year delay. I do have a couple of projects that will have a delay, and I will mention those in my review. Also, speaking of the SHOP, the commission is scheduling some public hearings in February. Have you seen official dates on those yet?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
I have included it in your package. So under consent items, the dates are included in your package.
Hence, review the consent calendar.
Item 4J and 4K are about the STIP hearings and SHOP.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, so let's talk quickly about some projects. The South Madera 6-lane project. This is the one on 99. We're still anticipating going to construction in spring of 2027. We are on target to achieve right-of-way certification and ready to list within the next month. I know this one is of interest.
Nabila said February of 27, start construction.
What date did you just say?
He said spring. Yeah, but see, this thing is the incrementalism. It keeps getting pushed.
So the deal is we're looking for an allocation vote in August for STIP and SHOP funding, I believe. And it's usually 6 months out from the date we get the allocation. So we're looking at February is what, and we have a meeting with Nabila on Monday regarding this as well. So it was supposed to be ready to list this month. I don't think it happened yet.
It hasn't happened yet.
Because of headquarters had some questions. That does not affect the allocation vote in August. And so we're looking for an allocation vote in August. Included in my package, just for your references, we wrote a letter regarding the SHOP delay and looking to, because of the fatalities we had on State Route 99, I think it was like a week after we had met in December. It kind of raised the bar a little bit on letting everyone know we need to get this project done sooner rather than later because of the incidences happening on State Route 99.
Yeah, somehow I just remember these dates.
The North Madera 6-lane, that one is still early on in project development. It's in the draft environmental document phase. Downtown Madera project on 145. Bid opening occurred on January 13th. Begin construction will be mid this year following the city's water project. The Madera 41 South Expressway project. We anticipate opening bids February 26th. The contract will go to the county board for approval late March or early April, with construction starting in late April or early May. Chowchilla Capital Maintenance Project, anticipating going to construction spring 2027. This one did get moved out, so the new schedule of construction of spring of 2027 is due to the SHOP rebalancing. Prior, it was scheduled to ready to list in 2025, 26, and it's moving to 27, 28. I've added a couple of projects that I haven't reported on in the past, just because I do think that they're of interest. And this, one of them is on 41, a curve improvement project at 416. This is when you're coming off of 416 onto 41, there's a vertical curve that needs to be corrected, and we're working on that now. This one is draft, ready to list, pending some right-of-way. There is going to be a resolution of necessity for right-of-way. The one property owner that's going to be impacted is reluctant to sell. Depending on the outcome of that resolution of necessity, it could have some schedule impacts, but we are moving forward with that project. It's a great project too. Another one that I've added is the Junction Drive ADA improvements. So this is on 49, just west of the 41 and 49 in Oakhurst. This one is going to be where they're going to be constructing some ADA ramps and adding some accessible push buttons. This one is on schedule, anticipating going to construction early 2027. There is a 41 capital maintenance project in and near Corscold, excuse me. This is a very long project. It's 12 miles. That's pavement rehabilitation project. Construction is expected to begin spring of 2028. And Supervisor McCauley, you and I have talked about some of the things that are going on in the area. We were able to do, as I mentioned, some temporary patches in Corscold. We're really pushing to get a maintenance project in Oakhurst this summer to do some localized dig outs of those really bad areas. Thank you. Absolutely. Definitely advocating for that. That concludes my updates. Any questions?
Very good. Any questions?
I just want to make sure that the project moved to 2027 has nothing to do with Churchill itself, right? Just wanted to get the record straight. That's all.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's go ahead and go to commissioner reports, and I'll start off with Commissioner Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Chair Poitras, and again, thank you, Shane, for those updates. I wanted to say again, thank you. I'm up here on the League of Cities. I hope to learn quite a bit here, not only for our jurisdictions, but also in areas of transportation. I did want to suggest a future agenda item. This is surrounding operations and the way we become to produce resilient plans with the shift in the way we're operating, not only in the private sector, but we're also seeing it on the public agencies across our state. More notably, with the shift in remote operations or hybrid meetings, you can see myself here today on a remote meeting, but it's becoming very convenient, and I'm a big fan of it. So as long as it makes sense and we're not it's not jeopardizing any other public needs. So that being said, I'll give you a quick story on me. Obviously, Commissioner Poitras, you had an opportunity to see my downsized office. Over the last couple of years, we've had a shift in the way we operate our business, and that's due to market trends. I don't think public agencies are immune to that either. So one thing that I do see, and I'm going to continue to promote this, is that we start being efficient in the way we operate. MCTC is no exception, neither is the city and any other agency that I serve. But when I see space, for example, if we've adopted a hybrid approach, then is the space now practical if we're only meeting maybe 10 to 11 times a year? So something to consider. I don't know what kind of plans we have. We've seen some economic downturns that will essentially cause some issues and ripple effects around our community as of recent, especially with job losses here in some of the industrial areas. And what that does for our cities, counties, obviously less money, less sales tax, less discretionary income. But either way, just something to consider in the future. I'm not sure if the board would be willing to entertain that discussion on how we move. If it is practical for us to continue in a space, then that's fine. But I will say that there are times that I can walk in and, I mean, people are working remotely, and I have no problem with that. But if that's the case, then let's make a policy to make sure that that's across the board.
I just like to mention there is a policy, and I would advise our executive director maybe to shoot you a copy of that. And I would also advise, I'm not sure that we need to have it as an agenda item. I would advise you to meet with our executive director and have that discussion.
Certainly.
And that way we don't take up time during the commission to bring it up. And then if we do need to bring it up, we can bring it up on the agenda. But that's probably the first step I would recommend.
Yeah, just a note that was a temporary hybrid. It mentioned for temporary hybrid. Not sure if that became something that was official, and this was back in April of 2021. So again, it seems like this is something that's happening amongst not only MCTC, but it's happening amongst a lot of agencies. So it's child of the future. If we're not really providing an actual product and or service to the public, then, is it practical to keep the space?
Well, and if I was, this is probably not the time, and I mean, I'd be happy to debate it with you, but MCTC, I always look at the bottom line, and I look at our organization, and I look at our people, and I look at the product that they're delivering. And, we are very fortunate. We've got an executive director who's been with us for 26 years. She's highly recognized and has been recognized statewide, heading up organizations. And we've got a great rhythm going here right now. And people do come in, they come and go. Things change. I mean, we can meet out in the parking lot under a tent, probably, but it's our, there's leases, there's considerations, there's computer, things set up. So that's, again, I would recommend that you sit down with our executive director before we, spend, lots and lots of time during one of our meetings to go over this. So
yeah, and it's not so much a discussion on it's more of something to look forward to in the future. It's not just for MCTC. This is going for all agencies that I serve on. So it'll be some type of resilient plan on what we're looking to do with the shifts that are taking place in the remote setting.
Right. So that, again, that's my recommendation. Yes, Executive Director.
So, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I would like to sit down and have a conversation only just to explain to you our situation here, because we're unique in a different way, and then explain to you our space and staffing and policies, and then we can move forward from there. But this is a discussion that we've already had internally. We've had this at a staff level when we, during the pandemic. So, and then that's when Zoom came up and all this other stuff. And, so we do have a policy in place in our employment our employee manual. But the size of where we're at, just for focusing on MCTC, not any other organization, and it just to explain our situation and why we are where we are at now, and then kind of move forward from there. So yeah, I would have love to sit down with you and have that conversation.
Great.
And also discuss with you about who works remotely and what our remote hours are.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Supervisor.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thanks again, everyone. Appreciate everybody attending the meeting.
Commissioner.
Yeah, I would be curious to get that information too. It's always just nice to know, have it available. So whatever information is discussed, if you want to forward along to me, I would certainly love to review. Other than that, nothing to report.
I don't have anything. Good. The only thing I like to report is, and I'm not going to be real popular with my fellow commissioners when I bring this up, but our executive director spent a ridiculous amount of time this last weekend trying to figure out a quorum for this meeting. And she apologized, and I have no idea why she apologized, because it's not her fault. As commissioners, we need to be aware of the calendar. I don't need to get invites from Sandy to inform me when there's going to be a meeting. I can look on my phone and pull up all the meetings that are going to be coming up during the year. I've got them all on my phone right now. I've got every meeting set up over the next year. The next meeting is February 18th, and my practice is going to be at every single meeting. I'm going to ask my commissioner, is there any reason why you cannot be here? Because if you cannot be here, you need to contact your alternate. This should not be something that our staff is hustling around and so forth. I drove down from Sacramento today, leaving my RCRC meeting so I could be here, so we didn't waste today, so we didn't waste the meeting. I know our friends from Chowchilla, there were some important things on there. And, it's something that we need to be better as commissioners doing our job. So again, we can, criticize and this and that and talk about it, question things, but we need to question ourselves in terms of, our commitment to this organization and knowing when the meetings are and determining if we're not going to be here, is our alternate going to be here? So that's my admonition. Sorry to have to deliver it, but it was ridiculous what we had to go through. So with that, are there any comments, questions? Thank you for all being here. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.